Welcome to Front Office Pros. I'm Steve and this is Joe. Today we're going to be talking about NFL free agency frenzy day two reaction. Not as many crazy deals, but still some notable players that went off the board, Joe. So let's get right into this. And we've got Sam Darnold. He went to the Minnesota Vikings on a 1 year, I believe it was $10 million. So quite the amount for Sam Darnold, Joe. Seemed like the Broncos were the second favorite. As a Broncos fan, how are you feeling about this? Were you kind of hoping for Sam Darnold? What do you think about him going to the Vikings?
Yeah, I think it would have been an interesting option for the Broncos. I wouldn't have wanted him to be the starter, but and still would have want them to take a rookie in this draft. But I think it would have been interesting to kind of kick the tires on Sam Darnold, see what he learned from San Fran, in that offense with Shanahan being there. So I think it would have been interesting. I think it's an interesting move for the Vikings. Yeah, 10 million is quite a bit, especially if he's going to be a backup for a year. But most likely, I'm assuming he'll be the bridge guy, and most likely the Vikings will end up taking a rookie quarterback there.
Yeah, it's interesting because Sam Darnold played with Josh McCown during their time in the
Right.
New York Jets. Seems like Josh McCown's all the rave these days, by the way. But I'm very curious to see how this is going to pan for them. I think there's a lot of folks out there that are intrigued by Darnold. I think I heard Peter Schrager said that there are more NFL types that actually feel he has a lot of potential versus fans, out there that think otherwise. So I think it's a good place for him to go. Obviously, we're going to be talking about winners and losers from a fantasy football perspective coming up next week once we see all the news that goes down. I don't know how Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison and team are going to deal with Sam Darnold, their quarterback, but he's going to have probably the best weapons he's ever had. So, if he's going to ever succeed, he's going to succeed now.
Yeah, and I mean I can't. Supposedly the rumors are once the Broncos heard that it went to 10 million, they didn't even propose an offer. They were just kind of out at that point. But even if Sam Darnold had to choose, I don't blame him from choosing the Minnesota Vikings. With the weapons that they have there, and offensive coach that is there, I in O'Connell there, I can't blame him.
So next, it's a lot of backup guys here, Joe. We got Jameis Winston going to the Cleveland Browns on a 1 year deal. Marcus Mariota went to the Washington Commanders on a 1 year deal, $6 million. Tyrod Taylor did a 2 year deal with the New York Jets, and Drew Lock signed with the New York Giants on a 1 year, $5 million contract. Let's talk about them first before we head into the running backs. Any of these guys excite you?
Uh, well, I think it's funny that now the Jets go ahead and bring in a guy like Tyrod Taylor. A year late on that, if you ask me, but it's nice to see they actually bring a veteran just in case something happens with Aaron, and maybe they don't have all their eggs in just the Aaron Rodgers basket this year.
Yeah, I think they needed a suitable backup, and after everything that happened, it was like we need to get this solved. But I think around the league, you're starting to see a higher emphasis in having a backup quarterback. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think Mariota will be a bridge quarterback again, but it's possible. I mean, I don't think Sam Howell is going to be trotted out there as the starter. They might draft a rookie at the number 2 overall pick, but if they do they start him right away? Do they just start Mariota? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people are just thinking that Howell's going to now be traded since Mariota brought in there. So yeah, maybe he does turn out to be the bridge. But the Commanders, I think if they go with a rookie, they should just roll him out there and start him. I mean, I don't think they're looking to be that competitive right now where they need a bridge quarterback to try to, give them a competitive year before letting a rookie come in there.
I do like Jameis Winston going to Cleveland, though.
Interesting, you
Deshaun
do.
Watson, yeah, because Deshaun Watson has been super inconsistent. I mean, I guess you could say, why not bring Joe Flacco back? But what did Joe Flacco do for you in the wild card playoff game against the Texans? I mean, it was a complete meltdown. So to me, it's like Jameis Winston has showed some talent. Obviously, he had that one season where he threw equally amount of touchdowns and picks. I want to say it was 30 and 30, maybe. If my memory should be right, maybe it was 40 for 40. But
No, it's 30-30.
30-30. Okay. So I don't know. To me, I think he's intriguing. You don't like it.
I don't mind it, but I mean, I don't see like Winston as like this huge upgrade or think that the playoff game possibly would have went different. I mean, let's face it, Winston has his own problems. This guy likes to just chuck it and give guys an opportunity, which he ends up throwing a lot of picks as well. Which that's ultimately how the game got away from Cleveland was Flacco was throwing those picks, and they happened to go for got a couple of pick sixes in that game. So unless Winston dramatically improves in turning the ball over, I'm not sure how much of an upgrade it actually is.
So, any comments about the former Denver Bronco quarterback Drew Lock, or should we head over to Aaron Jones?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the Giants went out and signed him. And talk about the 1 year, $5 million deal for him, half the price of Sam Darnold. I think it's interesting. He obviously had his moments last year with Seattle Seahawks, most notably with that comeback win that he had.
Which is shocking.
Yeah, which was pretty impressive that he had. I'd be curious to see what Brian Dable can do with him and what type of role. I mean, obviously, Giants are rumored to be moving off of Daniel Jones potentially in the rookie conversation. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole quarterback room there shakes out in New York.
I think when there's smoke, there's fire. And I am firmly believing that the Giants are done with Daniel Jones. I really believe that. I don't know if they'll end up drafting one or not. The tough part for the Giants is I think that Dayball is on the hot seat. So is Shane. So if they don't win this this season, I don't know if they're going to make it. So are they going to go ahead and draft a quarterback and then start all over again for the Giants? I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean that is an interesting point. I mean, if they're looking to win now, I mean it's tough to rely on, CJ Stroud's that doesn't always happen. Tough to rely on a rookie just coming in there and winning a bunch of games for you.
So start talking about the running backs. Joe, we got Aaron Jones got cut by the Packers in less than 24 hours, goes to the division rival of the Vikings. It seems like the Vikings just like to poach former Packers.
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been the theme, right? I mean, Barkley to the Eagles. There's been some other teams, crossed, right to the division rival. I mean, we'll get to Patrick Queen, but he did a similar thing as well. So just kind of interesting how that's shaken out. But, the Vikings really needed a running back. Obviously, Alexander Madison thought he was going to be the succession plan after Delvin Cook. I was never a big fan of him. He's out. Be interesting to see how they fit Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones together here.
I like Aaron Jones a lot. I guess the question is, like you said, with Ty Chandler, how much is Ty Chandler still getting involved versus this is the Aaron Jones show? Because, I mean, you saw when he was healthy, he was dynamic for the Packers.
Yeah,
so
those last 5 games especially.
Yeah, so I think this was a much-needed improvement for them. And they didn't have to sign him for all that much. That was the other thing. I mean, I think off the top of my head here, I think he was 1 year around $7 million, which, it's a good price.
Yeah. I mean, a good price for, like you said, a highly productive back as long as he's healthy.
So going over to the next running backs, we've got Joe Mixon. He went to the Houston Texans on a trade for a 7th-round pick. We had DJ Dallas signed with the Arizona Cardinals, not for more than I anticipated, Joe. He signed for, let's see, I'm looking at the numbers now. He signed, to my surprise, 1 year. 3 years, $8.25 million. I realize now Derrick Henry is not on this list, which is a big oops on my part. But Derrick Henry was the big guy. He had signed 2 years, $16 million. He's 30 years old, and he had $9 million guaranteed. That was quite the signing for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, talk about a perfect landing spot for Derrick Henry. Baltimore Ravens in that power run game. I mean, him and Pat Ricard, man, in that backfield's ridiculous. They combined for nearly 600 pounds, and they're just sheer force. And Derrick Henry embodies everything that the Ravens really want to do.
Yeah, do you think that it impacts the offense on a wider scale?
Well, I think it does. I think it's going to be tougher. Like if you want to stack the box, you can try it, to stop Derrick Henry. But I mean, Lamar Jackson with the read option stuff, it's going to be a lot harder to take Derrick Henry away, I feel like, than when he was at Tennessee, just because of the athleticism and everything that they have with Lamar Jackson. And if Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers continue to grow and that passing game continues to grow, I mean, this is going to be a tough offense to stop.
He definitely is a one of a kind. Then we had Deontay Johnson. He got traded to the Carolina Panthers for a 7th round pick, I believe.
I think so. Well, then the Panthers sent over
Dante Jackson
Dante Jackson as well. Yeah.
What did you think about? I mean, I had talked about Dante Johnson. I thought he was going to be on the move, and he did get on the move.
Yeah, I love this for Deontay Johnson in this.
Do you really?
Yeah, because
wow.
I don't think Russell Wilson was going to be able to get him the ball, and I was really concerned about that. Deontay Johnson.
And you think Bryce Young will?
I have more confidence just because the Panthers don't really have solidified weapons at the wide receiver room. I mean, Johnson's coming right in there, and really it's going to be one of their top receivers there already. And this guy just knows how to get open and get in space, and I have more confidence in Bryce Young finding him than Russell Wilson because, Deontay Johnson is probably most similar to, like a Jerry Jeudy type, and he could not really get on the same page with Jerry Jeudy and find him the ball. But like I said, George Pickens, Pittsburgh, and Russell Wilson, they're going to be, I think they're going to be the duo there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could have been better places for Deontay, but I don't disagree with you that I think that him staying in the Steelers was not going to be a good situation. But they didn't really give up all that much. They didn't get all that much in return, I should say.
No, I mean it was. I feel like it was really just like a cap dump by both teams, almost like two players that they didn't really want to keep on with the cap situations and everything. So I think the two parties, it just made a lot of sense.
Then we had Darnell Mooney, Joe. This one shocked me. 3 years, $39 million with $26 million guaranteed. That was a pretty high guarantee.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was pretty surprised at the overall numbers, but good for Atlanta being aggressive and getting this guy. I think Darnell Mooney. He's got a lot of talent. He's got the speed to be able to separate in this league, but that Justin Fields and him had that one really good year, and then things kind of fell off. They bring in DJ Moore, and he just wasn't a focal point in the offense any longer. So I think a change of scenery to Atlanta is going to be good for him, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to find him.
I think he will too. I mean, he is able to create separation, just was never able to get the ball. There wasn't enough frequency. So this is their second receiver. They didn't really have anybody. So I thought that possibly they'd go receiver in the first round, which they still could. I think more likely now they'll go edge rusher.
Yeah, I mean that's what all the mocks and the main people have always had. Pretty much Dallas Turner locked in at number 8 to the Falcons.
And I've got Devontae Parker. I don't know if you feel this one's relevant, Joe. This happened pretty fast, getting released by New England, then going to Philadelphia. A 1-year deal for $4.6 million.
Yeah, that one doesn't really interest me that much. I honestly don't really know where he fits with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith there. I don't. I feel like it's interesting. They brought in Julio Jones last year, and now they got Devontae Parker, an older veteran guy. They didn't really use Julio that much. I think Devontae Parker's got more left in the tank potentially than Julio, but he also gets hurt a lot and can't stay on the field either.
That's true. Well, one guy I know you're excited about is Joe Mixon going to the Texans. You've been telling me all along he was going to go to another team. I doubted it, and I got to take it. I was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, Joe Mixon is still, I think he's 27, maybe going to be 28 by the time the season rolls around here. But he's still got a lot left to give, and he's had some productive years. He can do both, rushing gives you in the receiving game as well. And, Bengals fell out of favor there, but really like this spot with the Texans. We saw guys like Devin Singletary go over there last year and have a really productive season. We'll see how Dameon Pierce fares out this season after that disappointing year last year. But I like Joe Mixon with the Texans.
Of the guys here, the running backs of note. So we talked about Aaron Jones. We talked about Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. And then we also talked about Joe Mixon going to the Texans. Which one do you think for you is the most interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say Derrick Henry with the Ravens because I just think it's the perfect fit, and it was just the perfect match. Derrick Henry really belongs in the AFC North. He's just that tough physical runner, and that's exactly what the AFC North is all about. So I'm excited to see what he does with the Ravens.
Are you worried at all about his age?
I mean,
because if he were to do it, he would be an anomaly, right? It's very unprototypical for him to be able to do what he's doing at his age. But he's a different style running back. I mean, the guy's huge.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's huge. He's in physically really good shape, but it's tough because there was times where he didn't look like Derrick Henry last year with the Titans for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe it was just their offensive line wasn't that good. So, because the key is you got to stop Derrick Henry before he can get going downhill. And I think because of the offensive line play for the Titans, it was easy to get him stopped in the backfield. I think it's going to be a lot harder with the Ravens. So, yeah, the age is a little concerning, but I did see enough last year, even at his age, of the old Derrick Henry still in there. We just didn't see it as consistently as we're used to.
So heading over to the tight end position, we had Gerald Everett signed with the Chicago Bears. That one kind of shocked me, Joe. I don't know what you thought about that one, just because obviously they've got Cole Kmet there. So I didn't know. Interesting. Maybe they're going to do a little more two tight end set there. But he signed a 2-year deal.
They still have Tunyon as well?
I think he's a free agent. He's
okay.
A free agent. Yeah. Then you have Mike Gesicki. He went to the Cincinnati Bengals for a 1-year, $3.25 million prove-it deal, doing the gritty with Jamar Chase. I guess him and Jefferson do that.
Hopefully Chase will actually teach him how to do the real gritty compared to what he usually does.
That's true. That is true. Because it's not very pretty. And then you had Irv Smith Jr. signed a 1-year, $1.3 million contract with the Kansas City Chiefs and a prove-it deal. So what are your thoughts on these guys? I got to tell you, I like the Gesicki. I mean, I'm drawn to it. I mean, it's a place where they don't have anybody at the tight end position, so you would think that he could do really, really well. But we thought that for New England, but now it's Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow hasn't really utilized the tight end. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think initially it looks intriguing because it is the Bengals, Joe Burrow, but like you mentioned, they just don't seem to use the tight end position. They brought back Drew Sample. They've also got that other guy who made a decent amount of plays last year. He wears number 87. Chris Collinsworth calls him the young Travis Kelce. Just can't think of his name off the top of my head here. But so I'm curious to see how Gesicki really fits into this offense. So, I mean,
Tanner Hudson, is it? Tanner Hudson, maybe?
Tanner Hudson. There you go. Yep. So they have those two guys. Gesicki's in there. He should be able, he's a big guy, should be able to be utilized in red zone situations. But we just haven't really seen that. And like you said, the Bengals just don't seem to utilize this position. So I'm a little confused by why the Bengals wanted him, honestly.
Do you think Irv Smith is relevant for the Chiefs? I mean, he's a very athletic guy. Can't stay healthy. He's got uber potential.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't see it. They have Travis Kelce again. He's going to be the third guy there. They have Noah Gray that they use. I know they were using Kelce less frequently last year, so maybe if that trend continues and they want to just keep spelling Kelce and give them another option so they don't wear out Noah Gray as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's going to have a limited role, so hard to say, how I feel about that.
So going over to the edge rushers, and probably the most jaw-dropping deal in my mind was Danielle Hunter going to the Houston Texans on a 2-year, $49 million contract with $48 million guaranteed, practically 100% guaranteed. You're saying 100% this was the jaw dropper of the day?
Yeah. I mean, I was waiting to see where Danielle Hunter was going to go, and then seeing that contract come through, man, I like you said, nearly fully guaranteed for a guy that's, had some injuries in the past, especially, the scary neck one a couple of years ago. But I mean, there's no doubt that this guy is really good. They lose Grenard, and then you got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson now on the outside. That's a lethal combo.
Lethal combo. Yeah, they might have two of the best bookends, in all football right now. It should
Yeah.
only help Will Anderson ascend. Although Grenard was really good in his own right, but this Texans defense is going to be no joke.
Yeah, it's interesting how the Vikings and Texans just swap their guys there. Both get paid handsomely by each team as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see D'Amico Ryan's defense starting to take shape a little bit, and it is exciting to watch.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like we mentioned yesterday as well, they bring in his guy in Aziz El-Shire at linebacker. They got these bookends now. Yeah, it's really shaping up nicely.
And it just goes to show, if you get the right coach, you get the right GM, things can just change, and the right quarterback, things can just change on a dime.
Right.
Because the Texans were absolutely nobodies for a while there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's got a hit in the draft, and they just they happened to both of their picks last year as well. So that's a definitely, like you said, they got the GM, they got the coach, and then they hit on their picks, and that's the winning combo.
Then you saw Shaquille Barrett going to the Miami Dolphins. I believe it was a 1 year, $9 million contract. And Josh Uche going back to the Patriots for 1 year, $3 million. Could have got more money. Joe, I know you were hoping Barrett would go to the Denver Broncos. Are you disappointed?
Oh, I didn't really wasn't looking for Barrett to go back.
I thought I saw something on Twitter of you posting the reunion to come back.
No, wasn't me.
Oh, it must have been other Broncos fans I was watching then.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I'm concerned about Shaq Barrett. I think it's a good move for the Dolphins. They need somebody, Jalen Phillips coming off an injury, Bradley Chubb tears his ACL late, as well. So they needed somebody. What concerned me was just how fast Shaquille Barrett's play just kind of deteriorated there with the Bucks, and Yaya Diaby just came in and really took over for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Barrett. I think I don't know how much he has left in the tank, so I'm not really all that concerned from a Barrett standpoint. But with Uche, I think Uche made a mistake. I think he should have taken more money and went to a different organization.
Why?
Maybe he thinks because unless he thinks that the new change in coaching staff is going to help him in any way to help him step up. I just don't think that. I don't know. I guess it really depends on the conversation he's had with Gerard Mayo. That's what I think it comes down to.
Yeah, I just think that, grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think at least he kind of knows the role. He knows how he fits in the system. And I think the Patriots defense should stay pretty much the same with Gerard Mayo taking over. So I think there's a lot to be said by that. Sure, he could have chased anyone elsewhere, but maybe he just wouldn't have fit as well in a different organization.
So some other defensive ends, we got Dante Fowler Jr. and Cleveland Farrell, both going to the Washington Commanders. Starting to see those Commanders sign more and more guys. Farrell was 1 year, $3.75 million. Dante Fowler, I think, remains to be seen what he got. But Dan Quinn, again, bringing another former Cowboy over to the Commanders.
Yeah, no surprise there. I don't really know what these guys really have to offer. I think I'm more interested in Cleveland Farrell than I am really Dante Fowler Jr. He saw him make some plays with San Fran last year, but obviously they just had a ton of guys in a rotation, so maybe he's able to make more of an impact and get more playing time with the Commanders now.
Yeah, I actually think I have more interest in Fowler just because he has been able to show a little bit in the higher sack threshold. But I think with Farrell, I guess Farrell's a former first-round pick. Maybe he can. He hasn't done anything too impressive in his other stops.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. But I haven't. Not that Fowler's been all that impressive of late either.
No. Then you had A'Shawn Robinson. He signed with the Carolina Panthers. Pretty big deal. 3 years, $22.5 million with roughly $10 million guaranteed. Then we saw Jordan Elliott, former Browns defensive tackle. He went ahead and went to the San Francisco 49ers, 2 years, $10 million contract. And then you had Daquan Jones, the Buffalo Bill, able to re-sign him. I didn't know if they would be able to. 2 years, $16 million with $10.5 guaranteed, quite a bit of guaranteed. And then the Denver Denver Broncos signed Malcolm.
You had it right the first time.
to a 2-year contract. I don't think any of these guys. These guys are primary. Well, I won't. But do these guys excite you? To me, I think Daquan has been good for the Bills. He's an underrated guy, but none of these guys really show up on the stat sheet.
No, and like I think you were gonna say a lot of these guys are just interior guys that clog up space and help in the run game. That's what I really feel like. I think maybe I might have the most interest out of Jordan Elliott. Maybe I think he's got some potential, but yeah, I mean the Malcolm Roach. I mean PFF graded him out to be number one as far as playing the run last year, and that's what the Broncos defense was really bad at. And I think he's going to take over, the Mike Purcell role of last year.
Head over to the linebacker group. Patrick Queen was the big name, Joe, and he decided to go to his division rival. Like you said, we've been seeing that more and more this free agency. 3 years, $41 million, only $13.8 million guaranteed. So not a lot of guaranteed for Patrick Queen. I know you were hoping the Broncos were going to get him. I'm a little nervous about him with the Steelers, to be honest with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just disappointed that he went to the Steelers. But, the Steelers got a really good player. They really needed a linebacker. I don't know. I'm curious to find out, why are you concerned about him going to the Steelers?
Because Roquan Smith isn't going to be next to him.
Oh.
I just don't think he was a bust. Roquan Smith was able to kind of control the defense, and then Patrick Queen was able to be a complementary piece. They're paying him like he's going to be the guy. Just don't see it.
Yeah, I think Patrick Queen has grown over the years, and I think he can be the guy. I really like him a lot.
Wow.
I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think the Steelers got a really good linebacker here.
Now you got this one was probably one of the bigger shockers for me. I'm curious what you think. Josie Jewell, 3 years, $22.75 million with $10 million guaranteed. I thought that was rich for the former Bronco. What say you, Joe?
Yeah, it was pretty hefty, but curious to see. I bet you he had a market, and as we say, connections are everything. And he goes back and playing with Evero in Carolina, and I'm sure Evero really wanted this guy, and he already knows the defense, and I'm assuming he'll probably have the green dot there over in Carolina as well.
Then we saw Willie Gay sign a 1-year prove-it deal with the New Orleans Saints. This is an intriguing one to me. Pete Werner has not been able to stay on the field. He hasn't been the guy that we thought he could be. I think Willie Gay could do really well in New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by his landing spot here as well. Obviously they have DeMario Davis there to play alongside with, and like you said, Warner's been a disappointment, and it's just a 1-year prove-it deal, and you see a lot of these guys on their contract years have a really nice year, so I'm curious to see what he ends up doing there.
Over at the cornerback spot, we saw Kenny Moore re-sign with the Indianapolis Colts. I believe it was around 3 years, $30 million off the top of my head. You had Darius Williams, the Jaguar, who was released, had a great season, decided to sign a 3-year, $22.5 million contract to go back to the Rams. You had Keyshawn Nixon. He re-signed with the Packers, 3 years, $18 million. Joe, what are your thoughts on these players?
Yeah, I was happy that Kenny Moore stayed in Indianapolis. We had talked about that before. You and I were both hoping he was going to stay with the Colts. He did. I just really like his role there, as that nickel corner, and hopefully he just continues on what he's been able to do these last couple of years. And, Darius Williams, going back to the Rams, I feel like it's a really solid move for the Rams. Like you said, he was just highly productive with the Jags last year. Was pretty surprised that they honestly moved on from him. I get that with the cap, and you got to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, now Kenny Moore is the highest paid nickel, so that's interesting. And I'm with you, Darius Williams. Rams, I believe they worked. I mean, they just didn't really have anybody I could remember ever since they traded Jalen Ramsey away. They really haven't had anybody that good, so I think this is going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, last year they rolled out a bunch of no-namers that we never heard of, and worked out okay for them.
Then lastly here, we got Amik Robertson. He signed with the Detroit Lions to finish out the cornerback group. And then we also had Dante Jackson trade to the Steelers. Either one of those guys interest you?
I think, I'm not that interested in Amik Robertson. I thought that was an interesting move for the Lions. I feel like he's just kind of a depth piece at this point, being that they've already made the other cornerback moves, yesterday, some cornerback moves yesterday as well. So I'm more interested in Dante Jackson. I think pairing him up with Joey Porter Jr. there, Steelers really needed a corner. And it's a guy, he gets burned a lot, but it's a risk versus reward. And for IDP, really need those, interceptions stuff for the points. And he's definitely got the potential for that.
For the safeties, Joe, C.J. Gardner-Johnson goes back to the Eagles where he did so well. Signed a 3-year, I believe it was $33 million, around $10 or $11 million a year. Talk about him. I know you're a big fan of this guy.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Where was this deal last year for them to keep this guy? That they just played chicken with him and trying to give him that 1-year deal, played around with him. He ends up going to Detroit, ended up getting hurt, only played a few games. But yeah, and then the Philadelphia really hurt themselves last year in the secondary not having this guy. So I guess it takes you to not have him to realize what you had and how much you missed out. So I think it's good for C.J. Gardner-Johnson who went back for the Eagles where he had a lot of success and should have plenty of playing time because they really don't have much there.
My only concern, though, now this is the Fangio defense. Is he going to play the same role that he did back in the day when it was the head coach of the Cardinals, Jonathan
Gannon?
Well,
I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson might go. I mean, maybe he plays the nickel for the defense because they already have a couple of safeties that I would envision playing the deep safety role, and that's not really something that C.J. Gardner-Johnson has done. He's been more of a closer to the box player, so I'm thinking he might play more of the nickel cornerback role for Fangio.
Then we saw Jeremy Chin sign with the Washington Commanders on a 1-year prove-it deal, roughly around $5 million. Jonathan Owens, safety formerly of the Packers, now is going to Chicago on a 2-year, $4.5 million contract. And then you had Jordan Poyer. He signed a 1-year deal to go to the Miami Dolphins. He was rumored to go there last year, ended up going back to the Bills. And then Jalen Mills goes to the Giants on a 1-year deal. Of these guys, I think Poyer, obviously, as a Bills fan, I've always liked Poyer. I think he's lost a step in my view. So I wouldn't say I'm all that excited about him, although him next to Javon Holland is a good pairing. For me, the guy I'm most interested in is Chin. Chin, I think, is going to be able to be the starting safety. He wanted to go with Dan Quinn. I think Chin could be really good next year.
Yeah, really surprised, really great deal the Commanders got for Jeremy Chin. This is a young player. He had high promise coming out. Everyone was talking him up, as coming up being a really great safety. This hasn't really. He had some, he had a good rookie year early on in his career. Then it kind of tailed off for him for Carolina. So change of scenery, getting with Dan Quinn. You're right. I agree with you. His potential this year, having a really good year, is definitely there.
Before we close out the show, there's some free agents still out there still. Which guys would you say are you most interested in seeing what happens?
Yeah, this wide receiver market's been pretty slow moving. It's still curious to see where Calvin Ridley's going to end up. I hear Patriots are making a strong push for him. Jaguars still want to hang on to him. So kind of curious to see which team wins out on that one.
Yeah, for me, it's Devin White and Chase Young, guys who were former first-round picks, top 5 picks. And so they have a lot of talent, but they've fallen out of favor with their teams. And we still have yet to hear really well. Chase Young is going on visits. I haven't heard really a lot about Devin White at all. So I'm curious to see where those guys go.
Yeah. Out of those guys, I have way more interest in Devin White than I do Chase Young. You know how I feel about Chase Young.
I know. I saw this from somebody today. I think he may become Jadeveon Clowney 2.0 and just signs 1-year deals everywhere he goes.
Yeah, he's the same type of player as Jadeveon Clowney. Likes to take plays off, doesn't give you 100% effort. So wouldn't surprise me. Maybe he'll start skipping training camps like Clowney, wait till the training camp's towards the end
here
hop on with the team.
So that does it for our Day 2 reaction. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about Day 3. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.